what foods to include and which foods to exclude. So,
Andrew, I have 3 kids, ages 14, almost 10, and 7. And until 7, 8 years old, the only thing I tell them is what not to do. And at a level of a culture of a species, in terms of what to eat and the knowledge of how to really nourish ourselves, as Dr. Shikha said, we are at the stage of a 7-year-old. So the most important thing is to know what not to eat, right? And if you want to really benefit your immune system, start by this very general and easy rule. Respect the laws of nature, meaning eat what nature provides. Mostly plants, but if you eat animals, then be it as they live in nature, not grown in farms in an artificial way and fed in an artificial way, which makes them inflamed. So therefore you're eating inflammation afterwards, right? When you respect that law, meaning do not eat processed foods, food-like products, things with chemicals, right? When you don't eat those things, you are already at a much better position than the majority of the population, because in Los Angeles, I go to the supermarket and everything that is sold out is the things that we shouldn't be eating. No wonder our immune system in general is as bad as it is.
I'd like to, Dr. Junger, that was excellent. And I so agree, especially with what you said about inflammation. If we think of inflammation, what is it? Even in Ayurvedic principles, we think of the fire element. And then in Western medicine, we think of the heat in the body, redness, pain, heat, and swelling. And most people don't realize it, but they're already eating foods that make them inflamed. If you're inflamed, your immune system is not working correctly. And so many of the foods that you mentioned, Dr. Junger, do play into increasing inflammation. Things that are processed, things that are brown, yellow, and white that are processed. So I even think of how you could take a healthy food, like you could take some vegetables, and then you overcook them in oil so they get brown and they get fried. Now we have taken a good, healthy, vibrant food and made it into an inflammatory food. So when we eat that, it sends the signal of inflammation to our body. Everything that we eat is information. Just think of yourself being fed at the gene level by all these different foods that you're taking in. So I agreed with you, Dr. Junger. We want plant foods, we want the full spectrum, and we want to get out of our eating ruts. One of the things that keeps us inflamed is when we eat the same thing over and over again and we don't rotate. Our gut microbiome doesn't get the benefit of dietary diversity, which we were evolved to have over time. This keeps us resilient.
Brilliant. Dr. Shikha Sharma, what would you have to say on this?
I want to touch upon 2 things which Deanna so beautifully mentioned. And one, she mentioned about the gene communication. We don't realize, but all foods, whether it's an animal food or a plant food, it's a gene. It's a software. It's a nature software, and we eat that. That nature software is communicating with our software. Now, if we put in, today we are talking about things going wrong. What happens in that software, which is a natural software, when we put a chemical which is not supposed to talk to us, and suddenly the communication breaks down because that chemical was not supposed to talk to us in our bodies. And that is where the body starts compensating. It starts changing its pathways. And that's where things start happening. I mean, when suddenly people break into allergies, when suddenly people start having pains and joint pains where there is no genetic history, what is happening? You put something inside your body, which is an alien. It's an alien attacking your body because the body cannot handle that. So it'll put it away, it'll quarantine it in a way to say in the liver. And then the liver starts getting ill and sick. And the other thing which Deanna so beautifully mentioned is diversity. I mean, if I look around, so somebody's eating pasta or noodles or bread or baked products or a roti in India or chapati in India, or a puri in India. It's just one thing. It's just wheat. We are just eating wheat all the time. Where is the diversity gone? And our bodies need those elements, which today we have just restricted to few things which come either from a wheat or a rice or a potato. I was reading something very interesting. A bunch of school kids in a big city were asked what vegetables you eat. And the only vegetables which came out were potato from a bag of chips and tomato from a ketchup bottle. So you can quite imagine, I think the future kids may not even know what a tomato looks like, because everything always came in a bottle.
Wow. So we know what to not eat and to avoid. So let's get into what's most important to ensure we include in our diet.
So as we were speaking, if it's made in a plant, don't eat it. But if it's a plant, go ahead, right? And eating plants really is at the heart of what the body needs in order to really thrive, right? And as Deanna even wrote a book about it, eating the rainbow is important because you can think of your intestinal flora, for example, as a jungle. And in the jungle, there's many species. There's snakes and there's frogs and there's flies, and the frogs eat the flies and the snakes eat the frogs. But if you get rid of all frogs, for example, then there's going to be an overpopulation of flies, and the snakes are going to die, and everything is going to be, and that's what's happening to our intestinal flora when you only feed it a few things. You're only feeding the snakes and the frogs, and then there's no so you are causing imbalances in the jungle that is your inner body, right? And you're not giving the opportunity for the diversity of the intestinal flora, which depends on the diversity of the food that you feed them, to really thrive. And from then is when everything starts. It's the flap of the butterfly that in South America that ends up in a tsunami, yeah, in the brain in Japan.
So Deanna, you mentioned eating the rainbow. What do you mean by that?
So I know it sounds very simple to say eat the rainbow. What does that really mean? I've done some research over the years and even published a nutrition article in which I explored all the different colors of food and what does the intelligence of nature tell us. What we know about red foods, things like a tomato or a cranberry or a strawberry, is that these red colored foods are very good for reducing inflammation. So they look red, they're good for reducing red in the body. Orange colored foods are wonderful for reproductive health, helping our hormones, helping the fat parts of our body. So our skin layer, our brain, which is actually lots of fat, can be helped by orange. Yellow is important for digestive health. I think of a lot of the prebiotic fibers that are found in yellow foods, like squashes or different grains or legumes. Green foods expand the heart and enable the circulatory system to expand and open. And then finally, blue-purple foods. If we think of a blueberry, a blackberry, boysenberry, grapes, grape juice, these colorful compounds are very specific for the mood and the brain activity, things like memory and learning. So if we're only eating one color, and that color is brown, yellow, white, a lot of the inflammatory foods, then we're missing the vibrancy of nature. And so each of those colors represent a class in nature that has a function in our body. So I think it's so important for everybody to get the variety. Like Dr. Sharma was saying, we're all kind of playing off of this concept of how important variety is, and to make it fun. Because I know that during this time of COVID and having this pandemic, it's not fun. There's a lot of stress. There are a lot of mental health issues. Eating the rainbow of plant foods actually helps your mood. So when you feel better, you will eat and make different selections around food in different ways to help your body.
So Dr. Sharma, is this consistent with the wisdom of the East in including a full spectrum of colors in the diet?
Absolutely, and I want to add to that when the COVID crisis happened, so we have a department which is the Department of Ayush, which involves Ayurveda and the other ancient systems of medicine prevalent in India, and they released an advisory, and a very useful advisory which one can follow from the kitchen. It's not something complicated. So number one, what it said was drink hot water and put a pinch of turmeric. And organic turmeric is a great anti-inflammatory. Number two, it said that make a decoction in which you use some simple herbs at home. For example, a little bit of powdered cinnamon, a little bit of powdered, or you can use crushed ginger. Then there's a large raisin which one can use, you can put all this in water, and holy basil. So in India, holy basil is very popular, which is called tulsi, and it is extremely popular here. You put 5 leaves of holy basil and a little bit of black pepper, about say 3-4 granules, 3-4 black peppers, and then you boil it for a while till it changes color and reduces a little, and you drink this warm twice a day. Now this is excellent because this boosts your innate immunity, and so these 2 things were advised across the country for people to follow. As you know, India is a poor country, and it's more than 1 billion people. There's so many people in India living. So the question is that how can everybody get access to vaccine? It's not possible in our country. So within our country, everybody went back to the roots, went back to what thousands of years back Ayurveda had talked about in terms of healing in your kitchen.
Shikha, where can we find that? I'm fascinated.
Yes. So this is on the Department of Ayush, the Government of India, Ayush Department, but I'll send you a link so that you can directly access that.
Yeah, Andrew, we have to post it for everybody.
Wonderful, we'll do that.
It's amazing. In America, there's nothing like it. Deanna.
I know. That's what I love about India is its use of spices, because those spices are anti-inflammatory, like you said, and they increase our antioxidant potential. And so for people in India, gosh, you have such great access to things like turmeric and all of these herbs that will help the body to function better during this time. So to go back to your ancient medicine.